you made a statement and you said a little phrase that really blew me away. I'd never heard an atheist put it so clearly. You were asked, what exactly would it take? I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here. You can listen to the program to get the exact quote. But you basically said you were just having a discussion with somebody about what would it take for you to believe. And you made the statement, if you had an affidavit, a signed affidavit from a Roman guard that was standing at the foot of the cross, watched Jesus Christ being crucified, went with him while he was buried, stood by the stone for 3 days and 3 nights, watched the stone roll away, was with Christ for the next 40 days of ministry, watched him ascend into heaven, and you had a signed affidavit from a Roman guard saying, this is what happened, you said, I still wouldn't believe because evidence isn't the issue. And this is, I want you to address that because, Si, I hear you saying evidence isn't the issue. Paul, make a comment about that statement that you made there in that debate.
Okay. I think there are a couple of issues in there. One is the principle on, the issue of being on principle. Whatever the evidence is, if one is not a Christian, one can always say, no, I don't believe that. On principle, it must be wrong. And I think that Muslims and Jews will take that view. Even if a rabbi were presented with that evidence, they would simply say, it's got to be wrong. Jesus is not the Son of God, on principle. In terms of the question of evidence itself, I think that even if we were presented with that standard of evidence, of itself, it wouldn't be enough.
You would need more than that evidence to convince. Well, let me ask you that question then. What would it take to convince you, or what do you think it would take to convince any atheist Christianity is true?
I think that's a really fair question, and I think that at the time that I was saying that, because my opinions have moved further towards becoming a hard atheist than they were at that time, I felt that the evidence that was available was insufficient. Even going to that extent, if you were to get the Roman guard almost as an eyewitness, never mind as an affidavit, it would have been insufficient. And I think that I've now since moved to the point where even if I had been there, I couldn't accept the evidence because the nature of the evidence, by being supernatural, is inadmissible. The issue of being on principle, whatever the evidence is, if one is not a Christian, one can always say, no, I don't believe that. On principle, it must be wrong. I couldn't accept the evidence. I'm so glad you've gone there, because I was actually going to bring that up. Okay. Shall I tell you what the most horrific photograph I've ever seen from the Holocaust is?
Now, that's up to you, Paul. But this is a family show. Just keep that in mind. So try not to be too graphic.
Oh, I could post it up. And it's a fine photograph. It features a group of people laughing.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's all they're doing.
Yep. And what makes that horrific in your worldview is what I'd like to know. I can tell you why it's horrific in mine because I believe in absolute morality, but it's your turn to ask questions, so I'll let you go on.
Why do you think it's horrific?
Why do I think it's horrific? Well, if they're laughing at the destruction of God's children, I think that's horrific, yes. Because we were created in the image of God to love and to serve Him and to enjoy Him forever. And if people are laughing at the misery of others, that's horrific. I just don't understand why you believe it's horrific.
I believe it's horrific from a modern Western liberal democracy.
So it might not be horrific. Is that what you're saying? You just believe it just on your preference.
That's what I'm trying to get to. That's what I'm trying to get to, Si. What we would like to believe is that morality is hardwired into us, and it makes sense. It makes it much easier then to look at a barbaric, repugnant concept such as molesting a baby, sexually molesting a baby for fun is morally wrong. Within our current framework, that's fine. So with you 100%.
So, Paul, do you honestly think that these people...
As I've just given you the example of, in ancient times, we are aware that child sacrifice actually took place. And I'm putting it to you that when those people carried out those child sacrifices, they were not doing it in full knowledge that what they were doing was immoral. They were actually doing it on the basis that within their worldview, it was a moral good to please their gods. I believe it's horrific from a modern Western liberal democracy. Sexually mistreating a baby for fun is morally wrong. Within our current framework, I couldn't accept the evidence. I couldn't accept the evidence